Hello YouTube. So some newer people to like Path of Exile or like returning players or PoE 2 players are playing PoE 1 for the first time. They've reached out to me and asked like, how do you craft some of this gear? You're an SSF, etc. So I'm gonna do like this is like the most basic recom. This is like how I got this weapon here. It is T6 hybrid, T1 flaring physical, and then a crafted. This is with an exalt on the crafting bench in your hideout. And then the suffixes are attack speed and crit chance. And then the rune craft you get through the settlers mechanic, and this costs the war rune, and it can go all the way up to 25%, but I just don't have enough to gamble on it, and it's not necessarily like the most important thing. If you can get like 20%, that's more than enough. So how you craft this specifically is you basically alt-aug until you get multiple desirable affixes. You do not want to regal your weapons. The item level, it really doesn't matter that terribly much. You just want the highest item level that you can find on the ground. I'm basically pressing Alt to show the mod tiers. I believe it's a setting somewhere in your settings if you cannot see the mod tiers in your own client when you press Alt. So this is hybrid fizz with attack speed, and this is flat fizz with crit chance. Now with the recombinator, it has a couple of different ranks here. I believe the highest tier is tier 6. So you need a little bit of gold in your inventory, and then you need the dust from disenchanting. So you can recombinate, 5% chance per modifier to upgrade tier. Rare modifiers are more likely to be retained, 25% reduced cost. The 5% chance for modifier tier to upgrade, so this T5 could be a T4, this T2 could become a T1, and the T3 could become a T2. I don't believe it can skip like from T3 all the way up to T1. I don't believe that actually can happen. So you have like a base chance of like, I want to say it's like a 30% chance for this to actually succeed. If this does succeed, it could be an upgrade for me. So let's find out. And it failed. The good news is, though, is that it retained 2 of the modifiers. So if I had another claw on backup that had attack speed and hybrid fizz, I could just go again. Unfortunately, this has a lot of bad outcomes, and to get a good outcome, like I said, it's like a 30% chance. And then over here for the runesmithing table, you just have fizz, 10 war runes for up to 20%, or you can gamble for 50. The 50 is much more expensive, but it's only a 5% upgrade, so you really just care about getting 10 war runes. Obviously, that's like kind of like you're done crafting the weapon. You don't want to craft it anymore. The desirable rolls that you want to go for is flat fizz and hybrid fizz as the prefix. Unless you hit like a T1 like percentage, I believe it goes all the way up to like 170%, just because you can craft up to 129%, and then you get 20% from the enchant as well, so you can make up for the percent increase fizz that way. And for the suffixes, you want either attack speed crit chance or attack speed crit multiplier as your suffixes. You definitely want the attack speed, because the attack speed that you can raw get on a weapon is much higher and much more important than the crafted variants of the other crit suffixes. The crit suffixes you can get all the way up to like 27% chance. You can also get, I don't have it unlocked, I don't think, yeah, but you can get like some of these other mods. but you can also use... Do I not have it? Oh, I do. For an Exalt, you can get Strength and Intelligence. This can be very nice for club builds, obviously, because Strength and Intelligence are what you primarily do not get on your passive tree. So you get a lot of dexterity through the travel nodes, and the only way to get strength really into the build is to get a lethal pride. This can get you all the different, like, basically, like, the small nodes give you strength, and then the bigger nodes can give you, like, added benefits. Most notably is, like, the rage on melee hit, fizz damage. You can get chance to deal double damage, life regen, increased maximum life. Those are all good. The burning damage, it doesn't matter. These are kind of dead ones, but... And if you have tattoos, you still get the strength on the tattoo. For tattoos, you want stunned and spell suppress as much as you can get, and as much as you can sacrifice. Obviously, if your dexterity goes too low in a build like this, it can make equipping like your body armor, because you need 150-ish dexterity. Reave isn't a dex intensive gem, but like Blood Rage 155, Arctic Armor, Whirling Blades is 111, so you basically just want 155 plus dexterity. So I could tattoo 11 tattoos onto my current character, and I would still have enough dexterity. And to craft things like cluster jewels here, you basically take a cluster jewel like this one, and you come over here. You do like fizz, and you can basically like guarantee attack is really good. Speed is also really good. Like martial prowess here. Martial prowess, damage, attack, speed. So it is considered a speed mod. Martial prowess is definitely one of the better ones. And whatever is in the middle of your cluster jewel will be on the outer ring. That's just how it works. So it's not like it's when you hover over it here. So if I had another modifier at the bottom, Calamitous then would be pushed to the outer ring. And then for the crit cluster jewels, you basically just click crit in your horticrafting bench. And for the other jewels in the build, you basically just slap crit. You can get the fractured like life mods or fractured attack speed mods, whatever you want. Ideally for this build, you definitely want life, because I'm basically like less than 100% increased life on this passive tree. I still have more than 4.1k life, which is more than enough in my opinion. But you can buy a lot of items that are fractured, and you can just like craft crit multiplier and try to get damage that way as well. For an amulet like this, you basically do the same thing, where you basically just want a fractured mod that you like. For this one, I had all attributes. I did eventually turn this into a talisman, but you basically just slap for crit multiplier. You can do this with essences. I don't have any currently, because I tried using them on another steel ring to get crit multiplier on a suffix, and then try to get a flat fizz on the prefix, as well as wed with a resist or two. That's what I was going for. So you can craft a lot of different stuff for the build that way. And for your belt, the elemental damage with attack skill, this is considered an attack. So what you do here is you just click attack on a belt until you get desirable affixes. Ideally, you want an open suffix to craft a hybrid elemental res and like chaos res. That's ideal. And for the shield, you basically just click chaos res on the horticrafting bench, or you use essences with chaos res on them until you get desirable outcomes. You can use multiple different fracture mods. The increased chance to block, you can craft this up to 50% from the crafting bench. for 3C. So you can get around like a 37-38% chance to block shield. And chance to block is nice for a build like this because Nightblade makes you elusive. Elusive initially grants 50% chance to avoid all damage from hits and 30% increased movement speed. This buff reduces its effect over time. And it also like gains effect. So if you have like 100% increased effect of elusive, you get 100% of the buff. But if you have 200% increased effect of elusive, it goes from 15 to 30% chance to avoid all damage from hits. This scales with evasion, this scales with block, this scales with all other like defensive mitigation layers. So it's just from hits, it's not from like damage over time effects. And if you block stuff, you can still get like corrupting blood applied to you, etc. And then one other thing that I want to go over is, well, boots, you can do the recom, you can do like chaos on the Hoarder crafting bench. Like there's a lot of different ways you can craft the boots. The boots are pretty easy to craft. But getting catalysts, what you do is you, for SSF at least, because I don't have access to like trade, you have a catalyst flip. So I have 4 speeds, I don't care for speeds. I got Noxious, I actually can save up Noxious in case I get a good steel ring, or maybe I just want to eventually flip them. Crit catalysts are pretty rare too, but you can get crit catalysts, put it on an amulet like this. This amulet is decent, but it will be easily beaten by Yoko's Suffering, and if I get Yoko's Suffering has basically like variants of resistances. I believe fire is the lowest, cold is the medium, and then lightning it can go all the way up to like 40%. And then you can use elemental res catalyst on it, and the elemental res will then go up. The more damage taken modifier per elemental ailment on an enemy, that does not get increased by any catalyst whatsoever. However, the elemental res or the all attribute implicit can both be affected by catalysts depending on what type of gear you're trying to use. Like if you really want to like greed for a belt, you could get a belt with just chaos res increased like flask mods on the other 2 suffixes, because I believe all flask mods are pretty much just suffixes. I might be wrong on that, don't quote me. But you can get like increased charge gain, stuff like that. I believe for the sake of like gain 3 charges when you are hit by an enemy, I do believe this does scale with increased flash charge gain. So if you had 40% increased flash charge gain, which would be like this entire wheel here, because you're basically always critting. So that's 40%. I believe that would impact the gain when hit. So if you had a gain when hit, the +3, you would then gain 4 because it would be 1.2. So yeah, I believe that's how that works. And then for the flasks, you can basically just alt spam. You want the gain 3 charges, that's most optimal. Obviously I don't have gain 3 on all of them. It's just really, really hard to hit. And then for the suffixes, for like the less duration and like shock, immune, etc., you can go to beast crafting, and it's these mods here. You don't need to press alt whatsoever, you just hover over them. And this is for required flask to have no existing suffixes, and this is for utility flask, so you can get like corrupting blood, poison, shock, freeze, ignite, etc. So that's how you craft those. And then you can do the same thing with your life flask. I like the instant recovery one on the life, just because it gives you a much bigger recovery pool than an instant flask. And then you can craft the corrupting blood immunity on it as well. If you obviously naturally like alt the mods that you like, you can just stick to that. And then tinctures, you need item level 85 predominantly. This is only really ever going to come from doing T17s. I've only dropped 2 of these this league, and this is the one that I've been able to craft. Obviously, because of like crafting gear is like very alt heavy, I just do not have any alts. So yeah. I'd rather pump alts into more claws to try to get an upgrade because that would be the most impactful for my DPS. But what you want is the prefix modifier that has increased effect and then increased mana burn rate. And then you want melee weapon damage penetrates. Perfect Flask, I believe it goes all the way up to 30% elemental res pen, and that is with 20 quality and like the highest tier, the T1 mods here. And then Abyss Jewels, you can just like alt regal or use the harvest crafting to get the desirable outcomes. And for Reave of Refraction, you can use a Vol Reave of Refraction in your chest piece, and you can even get a 2120 Vol Reave of Refraction by doing Alva Temples. You get the Gem Room, you increase the tier to T3, and that gives you the Gem Double Corrupt. Just be wary that the quality can actually go down. So it gives you two different corrupted outcomes. The level can go down and it can become a Vol Reave of Refraction, or it can go to 2120 Vol Reave of Refraction. That's pretty much the only way that you can get a 2120 Vol Reave. Or you can just use Vol Reave in another slot in your gear. It's really not that bad. The damage that the Vol Reave does is not really that great if you do this setup. If it's in your chest, it does do a lot of physical modifiers, physical damage due to the supports that we're running. The elemental damage, yes, we are a Scion in this build, so we scale the fizz, we convert the fizz to elemental, we increase the effect of the physical damage and elemental scaling by running Herald of Purity and Herald of Ash. So the Vol Reave does deal some elemental damage, however it is predominantly a physical base skill because it's not going to auto convert the physical damage into elemental like Reave of Refraction does. Now obviously in game, when it shows that you're like hovering over the tooltip, it is not going to display the elemental damage of the skill, but it's more than enough to sustain Trinity. The only way that it can sometimes fall off is if you just don't have enough, like, if you have too much fire damage, basically. So, like, Herald of Ash, and then hitting, like, fire damage. But typically, you're just not going to encounter those situations unless you're, like, fighting a rare monster with, like, the increased, like, res, and you have, like, altars or like some funky mods, etc. Then sometimes you can run into some short periods of time where invert doesn't kick in and you can start dropping Trinity, but then once invert happens on a non-fire damage hit, it will just automatically maintain Trinity. This is very rare. Maybe like once every like 50 maps I encounter a rare that like I don't sustain Trinity on for like a second or two. But other than that, I've never had Trinity issues with the Scion build. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about AoE. I am at the current point in my gear progression where I do not need to constantly stay in blood stance. So I just use, I have blood and sand on my W key, so I can always swap if I need the more damage. But typically I just leave it in sand stance unless I'm doing like Guardians or something like that, or it's like a Delirium Orb map and I really want the damage. This is a very impactful aura. It's not even technically an aura. It's just a persistent buff, but this is very, very impactful for Reave, especially early on to get more damage. The less area of effect really isn't that punishing, but the more area of effect does make it a lot better. Just keep in mind that this is like a 20% damage nerf if you use Sand Stance, because you're not gaining the 15% more area damage, and then you're taking a penalty of 5% less area damage. So just be wary of what stance you are in. If you are, and sometimes like if you unequip your gear and like re-equip it, and then you like press the skill, sometimes it's just not going to go into the buff state that you may want. So keep that in mind as well. Or maybe like double tapped it by accident by like doing like QWER type stuff. If you need auras on the alternative skill bar, you just tap control and you can move them over. That's all you got to do. Anything else? Oh yeah, support gems. So you can run pulverize instead of elemental damage with attacks if you want even more AoE. So it does have a less attack speed modifier on it, which makes it worse in like the super late game, like pinnacle DPS. But for general map clear, I am at a state where I could use pulverize. And pulverize just gives you more area damage, less attack speed, and then increased area of effect. So it's very, very good. It's like a baby ink AoE mixed with like concentrated effect, but without concentrated effect reducing the AoE. It's essentially what it does. It's a very, very good support gem. I definitely like it, but since we already run melee fizz, because we are a fizz damage build that then converts the physical damage into elemental, this is a very, very, very potent support. And if you get Awaken Melee Fizz, you can get the 10% chance to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds on hit, and intimidate take 10% increased attack damage, but this already has a less attack speed multiplier on it. And then another way that you can get AoE is, let's say you already have fractured like T1, T2, T3 life on your amulet. You can then get the crit suffixes that you desire, get elemental damage with attacks on it, and then you can craft the AoE mod. I believe the AoE mod is a prefix. Yep, it's a prefix. So you can get a little bit of increased area of effect here as well, 12% on the top end, and then the area damage obviously is going to affect Reave as well. So you can get a lot of increased damage from your amulet. If you have like a perfect amulet, you can probably get close to like 100%, which is a lot of just pure percent increased damage. And you can always turn it into a talisman. Just be wary that it's very risky. You can get some modifiers that are literally just dead weight to your build, and mine had dexterity implicit initially because it was a jade, and it is currently now just projectiles pierce to additional targets. Who knows, maybe this is like the game telling me like, hey, play lightning strike, but I've played lightning strike so much, and the current iteration of lightning strike basically just plays like a spectral throw, where you focus, there's an emphasis on the returning projectiles, and then you like double hit with the whatever the additional strike thing with the ancestral people, forgetting what the support is called, but it's a modifier here. Non-vol strike skills target one additional nearby enemy, and you just like stand in a very specific position, and then you try to get like overlapping projectiles, returning, all this other like weird stuff. It basically just plays like spectral throw, but with way better damage. Yeah, so the last thing is that Abyssus is not required. You do not need an Abyssus. If you find yourself dying a lot, you do not need to use an Abyssus. Abyssus just gives you a lot of physical damage, a lot of melee crit multiplier, and the all attributes is also kind of a nice stat. You can also double corrupt these, and you can double corrupt your animal's arrogance. Like, let's say you get a lower crit chance on your weapon, you can get crit chance, attack speed, life, some other stuff on your glove sockets, is the double corrupt, and that would be through Alva Temples. I don't know what you can get on double corrupt on the helmet. I want to say it's like reduced aura reservations, which would be nice for the helmet slot. Maybe I could eke out another like Herald, like run Herald of Ice, but it's really not required whatsoever. And then lastly, with Whirling Blades, the reason I use Whirling Blades is just because of the drop sapped ground. Whirling Blades, it just makes it very, very comfortable. You can use Shield Charge, you can use like whatever skill you want. It does not matter. I did get that question from one person. An additional option is, instead of using the why is it? Oh, because of the weapon. You can use a Blizzard Crown. This just gives you a lot of flat cold, and as you can tell, it does do fairly competitive DPS to the Abyssus, but the Abyssus with like the auras in it, because it scales off the Fizz with the Herald of Purity and Herald of Ash, it does eke out a lot more damage. But you can get stuff like, you can get, I want to say it's Redeemer, Crusader, yeah, Crusader, and an Abyssal socket in here. Obviously you would not need Vol, you would have to drop Vol Reave and run one of your auras down there in order to make that work. But you can get like the crit multiplier on the Suffix, and then you can get another Abyssal Jewel, and the Abyssal Jewel can give you even more flat elemental damage to make up for the Abyssus being gone. If you don't want the increased physical damage taken, I can, I guess, show that on my Slayer and then wrap up this video. So this is my Reave Slayer. This is the helmet that I'm referring to. So this is like kind of the endgame GG crafted Blizzard Crown setup, and you can get obviously fractured like T2 fire, and then to get this I just slapped it with the Hoarder crafting station with crit until I got a desirable outcome. I want to say this took like 30k juice in order to hit, and then I just like stopped rolling. I think I had like 2 or 3 different fractured elemental damage. This is a pure elemental build, so I only care about the elemental damage. And then obviously this is the yoke. This one I have the resistance modifiers. So okay, the fire and the cold they share the same value, but you can get the resistance modifiers on the yoke to get you slightly better res. Obviously it's not going to increase the fire and the cold that much. You'll be able to get 2% increase if you had a perfect divined one, and then the lightning could go up 4%, so it's not really that great, but I mean, you have no other options. You can either go for the resist on the suffix or the attributes on the implicit, and neither one of those is really going to be that ideal. And then this is an example of a good crit ring. This is actually not the best crit ring that you can get. Ideally, the suffix, the lightning res, didn't exist, and I instead hit a like T1 elemental damage with attacks, because then you can craft, I'll show it here, because then I could craft this modifier, the increased critical strike chance with the elemental damage if you've dealt a crit recently. This is a suffix, so that's an option. Or you can get critical, or wait, is that the right one? No, it's this one. This is on the rings. This is on the gloves. Increased critical strike chance, and then 21 to 23 crit multiplier if you've shattered an enemy recently. You can craft this as a suffix in addition to the essence crit multiplier craft. And then if you have a synthesized ring like this is, the crit multiplier, the critical modifier catalyst will scale all 3 of those modifiers. So you can get a very, very, very juicy, like 60% crit multiplier ring without having to do anything with the Kalandra ring crafting type bullshit. So that is an ideal ring to go alongside taming, in my opinion, just because with a build like this, as you can tell, the crit multiplier without elusive up is 389 in this build, and a decent chunk of that is just coming from a lot of the different gear. This does not have crit multiplier on the claw, which is another area you can get it. I also don't have like any flask active right now, so let's activate a flask, and my crit multiplier does go up thanks to the implicit on Arn's Anguish. I do have an entire like video about my Slayer PoB and the Slayer build, but this build is absolutely insane, and it's, in my opinion, a much better, well-rounded character than the Scion. But as you can tell, my hideout DPS on this character is insane. It's almost like 300k higher than the DPS that the character that I'm currently playing. And yeah, well, I guess with Sand Stance, it's only like 160k higher. So, but I mean, this build has Berserk in it, so it gets kind of disgusting pretty quickly. And yeah, and it also has like yoke and some other stuff that makes it just all around a lot stronger. This also has the perfect tincture. So yeah, I hope this clears up any confusion on like what to do, how to craft some of the stuff, etc. If you need to like replay the video for whatever purpose, go ahead. I just looked at the recording time. It's 30 minutes long. I apologize. It's very, very, very long, but hopefully this helps those out there that want to craft their own gear. Just keep in mind, fractured items are your best friend. You spend a lot more for an upfront cost on the base type. However, it saves you a lot of time trying to seek out the mods that you really, really want on your gear. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.